As a teenager, I had several psychic experiences, often occurring in dreams. As I grew up, life got more hectic and these experiences really diminished. They almost disappeared until the pregnancy of my first child. Shortly after his birth, I had the most horrific dream that I'd be in a terrible car crash and it would take my life. For months, I was terrified and extremely cautious. But by the time my son was 7 months old, I convinced myself that it was really only a dream. Nothing was really going to happen. I had a brand new teaching position, a baby at home, my husband to take care of, and I had too much energy in this thing. And then it happened. I had left school right away that day, wanted to pick up my son from his grandmother and hurry back to school to watch a baseball game. It was a picture-perfect way to spend the afternoon with my son. And as I was exiting the freeway, with the usual caution, I made a left-hand turn on the light that had been green for some time. This was my lucky day, I thought. And then in an instant, I was gone. Immediately, I was in the most beautiful and serene place I had ever been in. My grandfather, another person who I had known in a previous life, and a guardian angel were ready to help me with this transition. They told me of the accident, showed me the site. It was my time to come home, they said. The overwhelming love and happiness of this place were so inviting. I could feel myself becoming lighter each moment. And then, in a fit of fear and panic, I began crying. No, I can't be dead. What would happen to my son? He was only 7 months old. He would never remember me. His father didn't even know how to take care of him. I didn't want him to be raised by his father's parents. No. This is not the time to go. They were wrong. And then, in an embrace of love, they calmed me by showing me that my son, my entire family would all be okay after my death. My mother had my grandmother. It would take some time, but she would heal. My husband, hurt, sad, and lonely, would also heal eventually and find love again. Death was part of a lesson we are to learn here on earth, and my death was an important lesson for those involved in my life. I was shown my funeral, and I was taught how to be near the ones I loved, and told I could even eventually communicate with those whose spirits were open. I could accept this. They would be fine. I was feeling lighter all the time. But wait, my son. I couldn't leave my son. Babies need their mommies. I need to be his mommy. I couldn't let go. So much patience was shown to me, and so much love. My guides explained that the feeling I was having were still in connection with my human side. Once my humanness wore off, I'd feel light as air, utter happiness and extreme love. Words cannot give the feelings justice. They worked to help me throw off my human weight. The feelings were so great and seemed to pull me in stronger and stronger. Yet my connection with my son was just so strong. We wandered in this beautiful place for what seemed like an eternity. We discussed my life, we discussed religion, and we discussed secrets of the soul that humans must forget, or we would never be able to thrive here on Earth. All of the while, I was in awe. Some things were just as I'd always dreamed the afterlife would be. Some I was just plain wrong, and I remember thinking, wow, where are my other loved ones? When can I see my grandparents who had passed? In time, they were on a different plane. When my transition was complete, I could choose to go to the other levels when I was ready. So every now and then, the thoughts of my son would make me feel heavy once again. I couldn't bear the thought of him growing up without a mother. I was just told that others would be a mother for me. First grandparents, and then they showed me Jake's life. He was the most beautiful boy. He was so happy, but with a touch of sadness that seemed to pierce his soul. This was his lesson to tackle. He knew coming into this life the main lessons he was to learn. It was meant to be. I saw his new mom when he was about 6 or 7, a beautiful woman with a kind heart who definitely cared for him and treated him well. But she was to have her own child with my widowed husband, and the love that she showed for her own child was different and unequal to the love she showed my child, her stepchild. This isn't what I wanted. It couldn't be. I was happy for my husband. He was okay. He was happy. My son, well, that was a different story. Other lessons were learned in the constant, patient job of transitioning me to the other side. I had to let go. At times, I became hysterical, and at the moments later, I was calm and serene. I saw a little girl who was supposed to be in my son's place before conception. Plans changed, and there was a need for my son's spirit to take her place. There was a lot of commotion that my son could help mend, and he did. At the time when I felt the most closest to accepting my death, I experienced a resurgence of sorrow and pain. I was longing for my son. I could not let go of my human life. I mean, my guides tried their hardest. They never gave up. It is really unbelievable the amount of patience and love they had. Finally, my hysteria was calmed by a higher spirit who seemed to envelop me in love. My guides were instructed to allow me to return. Despite their pleas to allow them to have more time, They were told that my spirit would not rest. It was best to let me return to settle my spirit and learn further lessons. My pleading won my return for the time being. I understood before my descent that my friends and family had lessons that were being postponed, but they would have to learn those lessons at some point that my death had taught. Arrangements were made for when, where, and how my spirit would return, and what lessons I'd have to acquire. Some of the lessons learned in my arrival from the other side would have to be forgotten, and it was not good for my soul to know when I was dying again, or else as a human I would focus only on that, especially as the time neared. The last thing I remember was being taken back to the accident site, and just before my descent I was told that when my children were older it would be time to come back for good. I accepted it immediately, but then wait, what qualifies as older? Does that mean only a few years older? Teenagers? Will I live to see them marry and have their own children? This was one of my most difficult aspects to deal with immediately after the accident. I had a life with my son again. I had to do it right because I had no idea how much time I had left. I was told I was lucky to survive. A large utility truck ran a red light and hit the driver's side of my tiny compact car. Despite wearing a seatbelt, the doctors said I wouldn't have survived if it weren't for the airbags. Something's not supposed to happen in a side impact. The first year after the accident was my attempt to live the best life I could, the happiest I could. I was suffering, however, from severe pain from a fractured shoulder bone, broken ribs, and 2 hip fractures. I was told the pain should disappear in 6 months to a year at the worst. The pain has not gone away. The second year, however, seems to be the worst. I became so all I wanted to do was return to that place. This life that was so awesome, so love-filled, and so joyous, my son and later my daughter were the only 2 things that made me go on. I was here for them. Today, only 3 years later, I accepted my return to Earth. I still long to return to my afterlife home, and I struggle to find peace and happiness until my time here comes to a final end. Thank you, Karen S. I think you taught us a lot with your story. Most of the time, they say, it's not your time. You have to go back. And this time they said, it is your time. You decided on your own accord that you fought and you came back, and it looks like God gave you permission, so congrats. I hope you find your peace. And guys, I know I beat it into the ground about liking, subscribing, and sharing. And I know it's annoying, but it really does help a lot, and I do appreciate you. You all are very important to me. Until the next one, stay strong and live long.